Earlier, we looked at affixation and compounding. Let's go on to reduplication. This, as the name indicates, means that some element is used twice. And this doesn't happen a lot in English. One example, one kind of use that we have in English in a kind of a limited way is for kind of a contrast or emphasis. I've heard that in some other places also. I've heard that in Italy, if somebody says, I'm from Naples, somebody might say Napoli, Napoli, or Napoli, which would mean, right in the central part or in the surrounding area. Or in English, if somebody is saying maybe to their teenage son, get up, you have to go to some place. The person might complain, I'm up, I'm just not up, meaning awake, but didn't really get going yet. So those are a couple of options. In some other languages, reduplication can be used for other functions, such as indicating plurality or other meanings, but in English it's kind of limited like this. Another word formation process is borrowing. This one's really huge. A lot of words get borrowed around the world from one language to another. And it's good to remember that it happens when there's a gap, when there's some meaning that we need to express, that there's not an existing word for it, would be the usual case. So much less likely to have a word borrowed for core vocabulary, such as the names for elements in the landscape or names for parts of the body. Those kinds of words tend to just stay in a language and not get borrowed. They already exist and they are likely to be used quite often already, so there isn't as much of a chance to borrow them. And also function words such as determiners or prepositions or conjunctions very rarely are borrowed. These do get borrowed from time to time, but not so much. Now, for back formation, I'm really not going to touch on folk etymology, but just a note on back formation. An example of this, a couple of examples here. From editor, we get edit, and from emotion, we get emote by means of back formation. Notice how this is different from taking advertisement and getting ad from it, or condominium and getting condo from it. So this would be clipping. That's a different procedure. The difference is that in the case of back formation, there is what we call reanalysis. That means the original analysis historically was not that editor was composed of edit and It was just editor, one morpheme. It didn't have smaller parts in it. But people reanalyze. In a way, you could think of it as a mistake in a sense, because they have other words with on them at the end. They think, oh, editor must be one of those. An editor must be somebody who edits. But historically, the word editor came first. The verb edit did not exist until people kept hearing the word editor and thought, surely editing must be a thing. And the same thing with emote. Emotion was first, and that shun at the end was not a suffix to begin with. People assumed that it was and made emote out of emotion. So edit and emote were created by means of back formation. It's not just a way of shortening a word. You could think of back formation kind of as affixation in reverse. You think there's an affix, you take it off, but it had not been an affix, the thing that you were taking off. Acronym, these are pretty straightforward. I would just note we mean something that can be pronounced, such as NASA. So NASA is like a word. Now, UCLA doesn't seem to fit that definition, but some people pronounce it as UCLA, in which case it is an acronym, it's a pronounceable thing.